It's time for fun in the sun, but just because you have some natural sun protection, don't be fooled. Anyone who has skin can get skin cancer. It happened to one of the most famous voices of our lifetime. 13 News Now anchor Regina Mobley explains.
Bob Marley brought the island sound to the masses. This avid soccer player thought a spot under his toenail was a sports injury, but in July of 1977, Marley learned it was a rare form of melanoma. 4 years later, following non-conventional treatment, Marley was dead at the age of 36.
Redemption songs.
Norfolk doctor Fred Quarles successfully treated a local woman with the same type of skin cancer.
We get a type of melanoma called acrolentigenous melanoma. It's more of a superficial spot, may look like a freckle, but if you have a very dark spot on your palm, your sole, under your finger, or if you notice something in the mouth that doesn't look right, don't hesitate to come in and get it checked out.
And that's what surgical assistant Vicki Inman did more than 20 years ago. This native of Panama was shocked to learn she had skin cancer, basal cell carcinoma on her face.
It was actually very scary. I remember losing sleep that evening.
Did you use sunscreen as a child?
No, I did not.
According to skincancer.org, more people are diagnosed with skin cancer each year in the U.S. than all other cancers combined. Since 2008, there has been a 53% increase in the number of people diagnosed with melanoma, the most deadly form of skin cancer. Dr. Brian Johnson has performed skin cancer surgery on about 26,000 people. About 30 of those patients were persons of color, but they had some of the most severe cases.
The problem with some of the skin cancers is they're much more severe or much more deadly because we're not aware of it. We don't think we can get skin cancers.
He says if a spot is larger than the head of a pencil eraser, get it checked out.
This is totally asymmetrical. The borders tend to be notched. That's another hallmark of melanomas. Colors, it can be black, it can be blue, it can be red.
This is my message to you. If you have skin, regardless of the color, you can end up with skin cancer. Amazingly, it's estimated 65% of African Americans have never used sunscreen. Do you use sunscreen?
No.
Have you ever used sunscreen?
Never.
Do you use sunscreen?
No.
Sunscreen is very important now, I know that.
What about you?
No.
How about today?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we have sunscreen on.
Thumbs up, everybody! Sunscreen! That makes their grandpa Dave proud. More than 20 years ago, he was diagnosed with melanoma. This former Navy man used to spend hours on the ocean front with no protection.
As you can see, my grandkids may be mixed, but I still make sure that they have suntan protection. I do not wish to have them burn and come down with the same thing I did.
Everyone should wear sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30.
Get up, stand up.
The Skin Cancer Foundation uses the words of Bob Marley, get up, stand up, and check out any mold that is changing and doesn't heal. Regina Mobley, 13 News Now.